Hello, and welcome to the College and Academic Counseling presentation on advanced placement exams. My name is Melissa Williams-Rivera, and I am the team coordinator for the CAC office. And joining me today is Mr. Ruel Abraham, our registrar. Today, we will be going over the purpose of AP exams, when students should be thinking about taking the AP exams, and how to register for AP exams. Now, I will hand it over to Mr. Abraham to go over the purpose of AP exams.
So once again, thank you for joining us. With regards to IMSA and AP exams, what we're looking at are a couple of different things. First and foremost, AP exams just demonstrate proficiency in certain subjects that colleges will look at based on where the student is attending. Understand that each different school has their own policies. And so as a student is thinking about what AP exams to take, they do want to keep schools in mind to some degree. Certain AP exams do apply a little bit more in terms of subjects that might be gen ed requirements in colleges, whereas some of the AP exams are very specialized and may or may not apply to a given university based on the program or the school the student is going to. Another thing to consider in our students' case is the fact that IMSA courses are not designed to follow advanced placement syllabi. And so you're not really going to find any course that is named AP insert subject. We do have 4 small exceptions to our vast course catalog that do align exactly with what would be called an AP blank exam. Those courses are Calculus AB, which is in a track 2 courses, Calculus BC, which is typically in the track of 3 courses, Calculus or Calc-based physics, mechanics, and calculus-based physics, electricity, and magnetism. And you all will have seen that on our website and on our profile that those are designated and established as AP courses. Because of this, they do have an AP classroom, which provides some additional practice and resource support. But in line with this particular bullet point, AP classroom is not available at large to our major student body. And so it's not a resource that we advertise or look for our students to lean on as they prepare any additional degree outside of coursework that they take that might support their AP preparation endeavors. And then the final thing that's very important to understand is while there are some aspects of post-secondary consideration for APs, one of those considerations is not before admission. So to make that clear, AP exam results are not considered by United States colleges for admissions purposes. One simple, very easy reason to consider is that there is a fair number of seniors across history. I think now that number is a little bit smaller. There are a lot more sophomores and juniors taking exams as well, and even freshmen. But there is our population of seniors for whom the results of these exams will not be ready until well after both the admissions process and their own selection process. And so to be equitable and for the selection criteria to make sense, it's not considered. So that's very, very important. There are a number of international schools that do very directly take AP exam credit as part of their consideration for admissions. But we understand that tends to be a fairly niche population of applying seniors. So we wouldn't have that be a major consideration unless you fall into that very specific category. I'm going to turn the next slide over to my colleague, Melissa, to continue on with our presentation.
Thank you. So as a parent, you may be thinking, how do we determine whether or not my student should take an AP exam? So the first question is, am I academically prepared for the AP exam? So students should discuss with appropriate instructors to determine if their preparation is sufficient to be successful on an AP exam. This conversation would typically take place after the sequence has been completed. If your student has previous experience with a particular course and is interested in taking the AP exam, we again would encourage them to make sure they are reviewing this information on College Board, speaking with their CAC, or having a conversation with Mr. Abraham as well in the registrar's office as to whether or not there is a course that they should take an AP exam for if they are or have already completed that course prior to attending IMSA. Additionally, will I have personal conflicts with the AP exam dates? This is going to be based on how many exams your student is registering for. So exact testing dates and times are available on the College Board website, which we have included on the slides, which we will be sharing with you after this presentation. But the AP exam dates and times cannot be changed by IMSA, meaning that we cannot make rearrangements, and students will need to determine if there is a conflict, which AP exam they would prefer to take. Will the colleges I'm applying to accept my AP exam results? Again, this is where we're going to direct you to the AP credit policy on collegeboard.org. As the policies can be different per the school, you want to determine if the student will receive credit, as Mr. Abraham referenced earlier, for a general education course, or if there's other ways that they will apply the AP exam results. On the next slide, we'll go into a little bit more about which exam should I take. So here we have a listing of if your student is interested in taking any of these AP exams, when they should take it after their course completions here at IMSA. For example, AP Chemistry after completing the Advanced Chemistry sequence, or AP Physics C Mechanics after completing Calc-based Mechanics. We do want to highlight, though, that all of these courses are in addition to self-study for all exams. However, we're emphasized in the slides, self-study comprises a larger portion of student preparation. What we mean by that is that it will be part of your student's responsibility to make sure that they're utilizing study guides, that they're taking their time to reach out for resources in order to help them better prepare for these AP exams. So on the following slide, we have an additional set of courses that you can review, such as AP Pre-Calc, AP Calc BC, AP Calc, or AP Calc AB. So again, as Mr. Abraham referenced, the AP Calc BC is after completing BC Calculus 3. So in terms where there are sequences for the classes, it's best for your student to consider taking that AP exam once they have completed the entire sequence. On the following slide, we have the language courses, so AP English Language or English Literature, as well as AP World Language. We do have up to Spanish 5. We do have some other higher levels in some of our other world languages. So we really do recommend that students make sure that they're completing the highest level that IMSA has to offer prior to taking the AP exam for world language. And AP US Government and Politics, after completing US Government and Constitution, but remember, in addition to self-study for all of these AP exams. On the next slide, we will talk about registration. So again, I will hand that over to Mr. Abraham.
All right, so one of the cool nuances about IMSA not being so incredibly aligned with AP is that any IMSA student can register for any AP exam that we are capable of offering. There's usually a core of between 25 to 30 AP subject areas that we are able to offer. And we usually end up offering anywhere between 22 to 28 of those subject areas based on student enrollment and just the way that the year is going, which we usually are able to prepare for with no problem. And so understand that while at your students homeschool, there usually is some fixity around the test and the student being enrolled in the accompanying course. So usually a student's not going to take or be enrolled in the AP Computer Science A exam if they're not taking AP Computer Science A, the course. We have no such limitations because of the nature of our coursework and how those courses support either directly or indirectly AP preparation. So you have a student who's interested in taking AP Japanese language and culture. They absolutely could. We used to have a Japanese course actually, and we don't now, but we still offer that exam. There's no course here that really supports that, but if the student is prepared, we would give it if we had the requisite number of enrollments. So that's actually that's a plus for IMSA. Another thing to keep in mind, however, and along with that, is that because we do all of our testing in-house, utilizing space resources that we share with the rest of the academy, including classrooms, meeting spaces, a conference room for extremely small exams, we do have a minimum of a 10 student enrollment for us to actually give an exam. One of the first things we do when our main registration process closes is we count up our numbers and make sure that we communicate out to any student who has who has registered for a insufficiently enrolled exam. We let them know right away so they can take advantage of this fall window process, which stretches more or less to a deadline of November 15th for the entirety of um, College Board and AP. So that gives them the opportunity to maybe look into their home schools or other institutions that offer those exams to be able to take them if it's a pivotal exam for the student and their vision for their academic process and future in this year or as they head on to post-secondary education. I know that Melissa mentioned this earlier, but we'll reiterate here is that the AP exams are administered on the dates and at the times designated by College Board. We are no different than any other school in that regard. Every school is required to give a specific subject test at the designated time and date that College Board emphasizes. You can literally go on College Board's website and ask for a schedule, and they'll show you, so you can see what those conflicts might be. I know that annually there are certain people in certain groups that do have religious conflicts at times and things like that. So we absolutely implore you to take a look at the schedule and keep those things in mind. Forecast somewhat in advance. And so we have to adhere to that. And those dates and times are included in the registration process, particularly in total registration. As you click on exams, it will show you the date and time, if I'm not mistaken, that those exams are, and absolutely at the end of your registration process on your confirmation page, it shows that information as well. Okay. And then lastly, for our registration process, or kind of this highlight piece, students and their parents do assume responsibility of payment of AP exams. So we'll get right into the actual kind of step-by-step summary of the exams. So there are where I said there's two major portals that we utilize for AP exams, courtesy of College Board's new process circa 2019. So we use total registration to keep great track of all of your registrations and of your payment history, so that we keep everything above board and that everything that we are doing translates well to College Board and what is turned into them, or in this case, what they actually what they enroll and register, so that everything's well organized. So that is our primary portal. You'll be prompted to create login information on the home page from this website that's here on the slide. And from there, it takes you through the entire process. We curate and set up and configure the registration portal well in advance before October 1st when we start. And so everything in there follows all the parameters that we're looking for. It'll even let you know, and I know it will do this on College Board as well, if you happen to register an exam that is happening at the same time as another exam. That's one of those few instances where we would allow a student to keep both enrollments, and then we would designate one of those enrollments for the late exam week of APs in May, which is only available to students for very specific purposes. And one of those absolutely is conflicting. If you register for Calc BC and let's just say English language and composition is at the same time, 8 a.m. on the second Monday in May, you still be able to take both exams, and total registration actually lets you know that. So if you happen to not want to deal with APs past the 2-week standard dates, you'll get an indication both in College Board and in total registration of that overlap, so you can adjust accordingly. The total registration will take you through everything, logistical information. It'll let you select your exams. It'll let you select your method of payment. It'll let you indicate whether you are free or reduced lunch, because the fee is different. There are subsidizations from both College Board and the state of Illinois that drastically reduce the free fee from $99 standard as established by College Board all the way down to $20. So it's a vast difference. So if you're not sure, you really want to contact our business office and make yourself clear on where your tier is. towards any sort of fee reduction, so you can take advantage of that, because that's a massive difference in financial obligation when it comes to that. Okay, and you can indicate that in there. When you indicate that, if you indicate that, I myself or Miss Stacy Marsden, who has been the person you've been turning in payments to, if you've registered already, or you will be if you are registering, and who will be getting your confirmation pages. Well, either of us will approve those to make sure that that price change is different. And of course, if anything odd happens, you let one of us know. So you'll go through that process. There'll be a confirmation. There'll be a page that tells you to check everything. And then once you hit submit, then it'll provide you with a confirmation page, which your student has to present either in person or digitally, to myself or Ms. Marsden, or I put it the other way around, Ms. Stacy Marsden or myself, and in conjunction with payment. The two methods of payment that we are accepting, as you can see on the slide, are check and credit card. Check is in person or through the mail, but anything that's mailed needs to be in our hands on Monday, October 20th, which is the deadline for registration and payment. Otherwise, likely around noon or so, we'll be converting, once we check the mail and the mails come in, we'll be converting any intended check payment to a My School Bucks obligation to allow you the ability to pay it before our deadline time at 4 p.m. on that October 20th date. And that is our upcoming Monday, as of the recording of this webinar. After you've taken care of payment and all those pieces, or if you're bringing a check after our break, you can still go to College Board. On your confirmation page, you will have join codes, and those join codes are needed to register your exams in College Board. So total registration registers the exams for us, so we know our numbers, so we know our logistics, so we can start understanding what spaces we need and all those different pieces. But College Board created a second requirement where you have to actively register your exams there as well. And we do the reconciliation to make sure everything matches, but that is an absolute requirement from them for the registration to be present in their system, which directly translates to what's going to be ordered. So as many of you may know, pretty much all of College Board's processes are digital. And so this join code piece creates that digital registration, which, because of the digital nature of AP now, also houses the exams in their digital testing module, which is called Blue Book. So you absolutely have to take this exam for an exam to occur. You know, hybrid exams do have a paper component, but there's such a huge portion of the test that's digital, you really can't skip this step. And we won't see it. We won't know that there's anything wrong outside of reconciliation. So you want to do that. You want to take that join code, log into your student's MyAP, or the student themselves, of course, logs into their MyAP and enters that join code. There is a small caveat to this that we found out the hard way last year, because it was the first year it was digital. If your student is in one of the four courses we mentioned, Calculus AB, Calculus BC, Calculus-based physics C, or Calculus-based physics, electricity and magnetism, or Calculus-based physics, mechanics. So those four exams, they likely have already utilized a join code for AP Classroom. And so they do not, in those instances, they need to keep those join codes and not to use the join code that was provided by total registration for this exam. What happens when they register in AP Classroom? It is that they automatically are registered for an exam. And what I do is I go through and click no for any student who is in those courses who is utilizing AP Classroom but does not have a registration in total registration, indicating, yes, I want to take this class. I'm interested in learning about all these cool things, but I have zero interest in taking the exam, whether it's because of the school I'm going to, or my load, or whatever the consideration is. So all these things are rectified, but it becomes much more challenging if we use a join code from the registration and boot a student in one of those courses who's in AP Classroom out of AP Classroom. A lot that has to occur to get them back in. So we want to make sure that's clear. That was also in the pre-registration email. It'll be in the reminder email that will be sent both prior to Monday and on Monday as well. but that's very important. If you're taking one of those 4 exams or one of those 4 courses and the exam going with it, use your AP classroom join code and you're set. You don't need to do anything else because it'll still be attached to IMSA. It'll still be part of our big testing roster. It'll still come through come May. And then this is just a slide showing the AP exam instructions. So the written in your hand version of everything I just said, which I know will be helpful when you're actually going through the process. It's probably easier to read off of that than to kind of click through and find your place in this webinar. But at the same time, that can be found in the Naviance shared document resources. And as an added convenience in those reminders, we will also attach those documents to the email reminder, just so if navigating Naviance is not your cup of tea, you have an easy resource available to you that doesn't require that. But it is there, and it's been there since October 1st for you and your students to utilize. And if your student's a little more savvy with Naviance than you are, make use of them. And this is available already prior to any sort of reminder email that we will send. A reminder about the dates and the important dates. We are already about 2 weeks past October 1st, which is when registration started. There was an email that was sent out prior to that, queuing up this preparation. At present, we have about 270 exams for about half as many students. So that the information was sent out and received, and people are signing up. So that's when we started. The fall break has made it so that we have actually extended our process from what used to be a 2 week process to about a 3 week process. And so October 20th, the day that our students come back from fall break, is the day that AP registration ends. It is also the day that AP payments are due as well. Both things are due at 4 p.m. on October 20th, which is a Monday. As we mentioned, if you indicated via email or whatever communication that you're sending a check and we don't receive that check in the mail, you will be converted to an obligation in My School Bucks to allow you the ability to make that payment within the deadline time frame, so that we can still order your students' exams. We will not order exams that aren't paid for, which I believe is expected, but we will do everything that we can to best accommodate circumstances within the time frame that we've established. We don't technically, and we don't endorse, and we don't technically register AP exams outside of established registration phases. And so we do mention here that there's a $40 penalty for any changed AP, and that includes anyone trying to add an AP after November 15th. So even though our process ends, we do have a little bit of latitude. If you cancel exam before the 14th, actually, the 15th is the date that is the deadline for College Board. That is a Saturday. So the 14th is the actual day we say that's the cutoff. So if you register for something, you think better of it because you had another, let's say you registered on October 1st and you get to November 1st and you're like, that month made all the difference. Good Lord, I do not want to take this exam. You can cancel the exam for your full refund up until the 14th. After that, College Board charges us and by proxy you for those changes and those additions. Additionally, we will not look to add any APs until our late spring process or our late registration spring process, which we will inform you of and go into greater detail closer to that time. We don't want to mix messages or get anything confused because this is big enough as it is, right? But so the $40 thing is the $40 penalty is something to keep in mind, but I don't want to also mislead and say you can add an AP exam willy-nilly. And not at all. Total registration shuts off 4 p.m. on October 20th. And were it to reopen, it would be during that mid-spring, late spring process for APs. We'll give full information, very much like this process is, like we have for this process, when that time comes. And then again, we've posted the dates here, May 4th through May 15th. APs are always in the first 2 full weeks of May, which can sometimes make that start date wildly vary from year to year. these are the times that this occurs. And again, it's very important to keep this in mind. I don't think it impacts this year, but as we deal with digital exams, there's the possibility for errors. I think last year there was a calculator error, and they allowed the better part of 12 of the biggest exams we give to retest. The better part of 200 students potentially were able to retest those exams, and that goes into a late week. So there are things like prom. There's a lot of things going on in May that are important to our students, and to our seniors in particular, that this timetable can impact. So you really do want to think about when things are occurring when you're deciding to take AP exam.
So to recap, for the AP exams, should your student take them or not? So yes, if the student is academically prepared. Please feel free to refer back to the previous slides as to what that would actually look like. No, if the student thinks that by taking them, it's going to help them with the college admissions process. As we stated previously, that is not one of the factors that are considered with admissions for domestic colleges and universities. Yes, if the student wants to test out of entry-level courses at all state universities and many private colleges. And by state universities, we mean in Illinois. And then no, if a student already is aware of the colleges that they're looking to apply to, and if they have reviewed the College Board Schools AP policies, kind of like for schools for Caltech, which does not accept AP exams, but may use that for other factors. So again, utilizing College Board's website to kind of review for each school or college that your student might be interested in what their specific AP policy entails. So we do understand that this, this webinar, we made sure that we went into detail about a lot of the registration process. And so we want to thank you for taking the time to view this. This will be posted on our YouTube channel for IMSA for you to be able to review at your leisure. In the meantime, if you have specific questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to Mr. Ruel Abraham, whose information is on the slide, or myself, Melissa Williams-Rivera, or your student's CAT, or Ms. Marsden in regards to acceptance of payments. So thank you again for joining us today. And again, this information will be posted for you to review at your leisure. And we hope that if you have any questions, you feel free to reach out to us.
Thank you so much.